Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Keren Leshem with us. She is CEO at OCON Therapeutics. We're going to talk about a bunch of interesting things, amongst which Femtech, uterus, and women's health. So it's going to be a fascinating one. Keren is quite the accomplished woman slash, I would also qualify you as power women. Keren, you're really successful. So congrats on everything. We're going to talk about your background. So can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your business?
Sure. So I am now the CEO at OCON Therapeutics. Prior to that, I worked in the ophthalmology eye disease space for about 15 years. Prior to that, I grew up in the United States. I moved back to Israel to join the military. I did that for a few years. I was an officer. And afterwards, I got into the Israeli high-tech and biotech and did an array of positions in both medical devices and pharmaceuticals, and also diagnostics. I feel really, privileged to lead a company for women by women. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess you work hard to get there. Looking at your background, first I want to start from the very early Keren life as an officer in the Israel Defense Force, so like the mandatory service. What did you learn from that?
I learned we're all human beings, right? The military has a way to rip off any social or economic, view. And so we all wear uniform. So you can't really see where your background is, who you are. We just all look the same. And so I realized we're all human. We all cry when it hurts, and we all smile when, it's fun. I think that was the most important lesson. And I think the other lesson is that in the Israeli army, when you become an officer, you're very young. You're in you're 19 or 20, and you're already commanding on other soldiers. And I found that to be extremely enlightening, how to get people to follow you and your command, without paying them salary, right? You don't give them bonuses, you don't give them salaries. So that was my first experience. I can't say it was a very good and fun one, but it was the first experience where I learned a lot.
Wow. Well, yeah, I went to private school and we all had uniforms, so I liked that aspect of it. And thank God that you learned leadership from that early age. I wish I would have learned that, because all the jobs that I had at a young age, I would never manage anyone. Only in my 19 or 20 years old did I started to manage a lot of people from India, mostly from Upwork with my first agency that I run. And that was so enlightening. So that's kind of cool that they teach you that. I have a question though. You talk often about grit or anti-fragileness, for example.
Yes.
Do you think that this contributed to it? Because I acquired all of that through martial arts at the age of 18. I think that really got deep in my psyche. Do you think it started there for you?
I think it starts at birth, when you kind of, in your DNA, you don't hear the word no. You just don't hear it. And so when I get a no, I'm like, nah, he doesn't really mean it, or she doesn't really mean it. And you keep going. And you have this internal compass that says, I'm doing the right thing. This is something good that I'm doing. We're important or healthy or, needed. And you just go. And there will be a lot of noise on the way. Noise could be from, the fact that you want to have a family. Noise could be from people that, undermine you. Noise could be also from people that want to be in your presence and they keep making noise. So noise can come from any direction, from your family, from your friends, from your colleagues, from your investors, from your teammates. So it's really, really important to stay focused. And I think that one of the things that, early on in my life was that I moved around a lot. I moved from Israel to the United States, back to Israel. I changed cultures. I changed environments. I was in high school, and then I was in, university in the United States or college. And then I came back to the army. So you move a lot, different cultures, different organizations. And so that also helps you develop who you are and what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard these stories many times about founders that's parents were diplomats and were traveling all the time, and that really helped them to adapt. Me as a digital nomad, it certainly helped me a whole lot, you know, to change places every month and to see various cultures and realize we're pretty much all the same.
Yeah,
I'm
well, we
looking,
talked about it where you did your Ironmans. That's so cool.
yeah,
You know, these are places that, you know, most people even haven't heard of.
yes, well, Cozumel, as I told you pre-pod, you know, you have these kind of spiritual experience, and me, they happen on the bike, you know. So in Cozumel, as I was finishing, I think my third 60-kilometer loop, I began crying because I was like, oh, the Mexican people, they've always been super good to me, you know, like a family. So that was one very deep experience that I had once there. Looking at your background here, you became CEO quite quickly, one could say. You and why? So, like, the first question is why start your own stuff that early, and second, why pharma?
So I'm not very young, so this is not very early. But you know, sometimes life takes you into positions and places that you haven't really planned on. This was not my plan at OCON. I joined as a VP of Sales and Business Development, but very soon I found that this is what I want to do. And I had the support of of our investors that asked me to step up and kind of redo or re-pivot the company into something that we thought would be a lot more needed and better for women's health. But yeah, it's something that I love doing. I think we need a lot more women in seats that can make decisions. My team, we're 22 people, we're 85% women. And I think it's great because we multitask, we're super, super, super loyal and involved. And it's great fun to work with really smart people that, we all have the same vision and the same mission and the same idea and same experiences to really bring forward these important innovations to market.
And tell us a bit more about the products. They seem to be really innovative. I've never seen anything like it before.
So, these products are super simple on one hand. We basically took a stent, the same nitinol that we put in our hearts to open up, pathways to the heart. So we used the same type of nitinol frame, but we designed it as a ball so that it really fits the women's anatomy. Our uterus is a space in our body. And if you try to put anything but a ball, it points, it prickles, it hurts, it perforates, it breaks, it malpositions. And so a ball is perfect for the uterus because it really fits. And on this ball, also the way it spreads, the different materials, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, therapies, drugs, it's very uniform, right? Because it's a ball. So it's in all directions. And so in doing so, we also developed the best way to bring therapeutics to the uterus. And there's a ton of prevalent diseases that today either are not detected, not treated well, treated with hormones, or very harmful other toxic pharmaceuticals. And so we want to move away from that and move away from hospital procedures and make sure women have a choice to take care of these different diseases and indications directly at the target tissue. So it's a very simple product. It's just a stent that delivers drugs, but it's highly patented and very highly innovative. But the best innovations are the ones that are most simple.
Right, I'd agree. And how long can this thing last into you?
That's a really good question. So some of these are procedures that are only in the body for a few minutes, 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. And some of these can stay in the body up to 7 years. So it really depends what the disease is, what the need is. Yeah.
7 years. Okay, so how can something stay that long in a body that's constantly moving and recycling itself?
So think about the fact that, in the uterus, we have a lining that, kind of builds up every month and washes out. Sometimes we have issues in there with the lining itself, with the muscle. Sometimes we have things that grow in there or things that are just unbalanced. And when you place a device that is able to give therapy to help this lining or this muscle behave, the uterus responds to it, and it keeps itself inside, continuing to deliver medicine. So, you know, we of course, we didn't invent drug delivery and sustained drug delivery. We have that in our eyes, and we have that in so many other parts of the body, where instead of doing a daily dose of something, we put a specific device that does it for us for over a course of some years.
So how did you get the idea of the product in the first place, and when was that exactly?
So when I joined OCON, it wasn't a young company. The product was already around for a few years, and the inventor of the technology was basically a healthcare professional that saw that women came and complained about their IUDs, their intrauterine devices. And he couldn't understand why, because they seemed to be in place. But once they found with three-dimensional ultrasound that these devices are malpositioned and broken and perforated, he understood that, you know, the shape is just not right. You take a two-dimensional T-shape in a three-dimensional pocket, stuff will happen and drawbacks. And he said, you know, the best idea would be to put something circular and round and soft and feminine. But how do you get a circle into the uterus up a very, very narrow path called the cervix? And so that's the whole idea. He started with a paper clip, kind of playing with it. How can you make a ball out of a line? And at the end of the day, he designed a ball that folds itself and on itself into the uterus. Very, very cool.
Yeah, and it's surprising that a man designed that, you know, every time we go to the
A very smart man.
gynecologist and
Yeah.
it's like a man checking my wife. I'm like, why? Like, it's weird that it's a man doing that.
Do you
Still
want to
very,
see how it works?
yeah, for sure.
So it comes in a straight line, right? Because it has to
Okay.
go all the way up in our bodies, but
Yeah,
only a doctor could do this, right? We can't do this to ourselves. But when you push out from the bottom,
yeah.
when you push out, you can see it folds
There's a little
backwards.
snake coming out.
Yeah, it folds and it creates a ball. Super
Wow,
simple, right?
I like that. So the procedure itself, how simple is it? Who installs the thing, and do you train the person to do that?
Well, it's not a whole lot of training because all the doctors know how to insert an IUD. So it's not a whole lot of training. It's not a fun procedure. Any gynecological procedure is no fun, believe me.
Right.
Had one or two or six. But it's not a fun procedure, but it's definitely not a procedure that you need to repeat many, many times, because if it does stay in the body for a few years, you're good. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of training needed. Women can take, you know, a pain relieving pill for a day or two, and that's it.
And in what country is IUB sold right now?
So we have one of our products that validated this platform. So it's a whole platform of products. It's sold in Europe, South America, soon in Canada, soon in China, Japan. We're all over the world outside the US. But we're really focusing now on the therapeutic IUBs, intrauterine balls. And those would be available later on in a couple of years, 2 to 3 years.
Right. And US, is it like too complex to be sold there with the FDA? And what's the different processes of regulation between other countries? What have you seen so far in terms of market?
So no, FDA is very straightforward. You know, it is what it is. And there's, you know, these are expensive hobbies. So we're always looking for people to support our path. These are just very expensive clinical studies. And so we'll get there soon enough. But in the meantime, years ago, it was much easier to attain a CE mark. Today, that's not the case. You know, small startups are struggling because the CE development path and the FDA are different from each other, but both require separate, you know, requirements. And then you have the UK that's separate, and you have China that's separate, and Japan that's separate, Brazil that's separate. So it's a lot of heavy lifting in terms of regulatory globally.
And can you give us an idea of the price ranges of these products? I guess that all have different prices, but how much should I pay, let's say, for having the product plus the installation? I guess like two different prices, no?
Well, again, it depends on the disease area and depends on what you're replacing. Our first product is mostly, it's a more higher end product, so it's a little bit more expensive than the traditional plastic T-shape IUDs. But when we look at a 5-year product and you cost a little bit more, it's very negligent. On the other products, because these are therapies, and we take away the need to take an oral drug and we take away the need to do a hospital procedure, they're much, much cheaper and much better tolerated than what is available today.
So is it like price range 500 euros at one gate? Like, how does it look like?
Well, for the first product, a copper IUD, it really depends on what country you're in. It could be anywhere from 100 to 400, 500 euros. Depends, again, where you live. If it's Eastern Europe or Western Europe. For the other products, these are products that are reimbursed. And so reimbursement will be in the thousands.
Okay. Somewhat cheap, right? Because hormonal disbalances, they can really ruin a woman's life, not only the longevity, but the quality of it. You know, it's like me, if I would have low testosterone, I would have low drive, and yeah, bad things would happen to me. So I guess it's really a low price to pay for all of that.
Sure, this is definitely a way to improve our quality of life. Anything we don't have to take orally or systemically improves our quality of life.
I have a couple more questions to ask you because we're short on time here, but how does it feel to have your career there today, like to be quite successful? I mean, you recently joined the World Economic Forum. Were you dreaming of that when you were younger? And what would you tell to younger women that have these dreams?
No, I think that I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. But I can tell you, I feel super, super privileged that I was given the opportunity, to lead this important mission of improving women's lives and women's health. To girls and to women, I always say that we have to work on our network. We have to know, we have to study, we really have to know, because we're going to be around a table with others, and they're going to probably look at us and say, you're young, what do you know? So you got to know, you got to have a network, and you have to dare, right? That's it. Those are the 3 components that I believe are there to be successful. You don't have to be pretty, you don't have to be skinny, you don't have to be, this world famous physician. You just have to dare. You need to have a good network, and you need education. You need to know. That's it. And then the sky's the limit.
Love it. Well, thank you for all these insights today, Keren. Where can people find out more about you and OCON?
Well, I'm always on LinkedIn. That's where I live. Recently I reached 15,000 followers. That's insane.
Yeah.
So I'm there. Anyone who writes me, they know they'll always get a reply. I allow everyone, in, I give time to everyone. So I'm there. It's the best way to find me.